Doug Ford now telling Pierre Poilievre to be more liberal for electoral gain. Ford was telling the Poilievre conservatives, avoid the hardcore right wing. His words. I'll go to Richard first. This is rich, Richard, because by my math, Poilievre got over 41% of the vote in the last election. That is normally good enough for government. We all know what happened. The NDP cratered. NDP supporters left their own party, much like NDP leader Jagmeet Singh left his own party. And a lot of those votes went Liberal. That's why I think this was really an anomaly. But I find this galling that Doug Ford is lecturing Poilievre to be more liberal. I think that's the last thing we need in this country.
Well, I'd like Fat Trudeau to defend his or to define his terms here. What does he mean by a hardcore conservative? Does he mean men with wedding tackle in women's rape shelters or in the swimming pool with minor girls? Does he mean that the conservatives should abandon that position? Does he believe that hardcore conservatism means that we should just open the floodgates and become the third world by inviting the third world? What does Doug Ford mean by abandon hardcore conservatism? What is, I mean, there's nothing conservative about Doug Ford. Bob Rae, by comparison, when he was the premier, might constitute conservative with comparison to Doug Ford. So I don't know what this guy's talking about.
Oh, yeah. NDP leader Bob Rae back in the day, he'd look like a fiscal conservative today, much as, you know, he received the controversy back then. But Richard, I want to also weigh in on what is the unspoken strategy here? There is so much speculation that Doug Ford, I guess he's tired of being a big fish in a small pond. He wants to be the leader of the federal Conservative Party. I think if I start seeing Doug Ford taking French lessons, I'm going to be terrified. But is that the end goal here, and constantly calling out Poilievre?
Yeah, the end game for the progressive wing of the Conservative Party, just as it is with the Liberal Party, is to gain power and to stay in power and hold on to power and reward your friends while in power. Occupy space. At the very moment, what this country needs is a disruptor like a Donald Trump. Yeah. He wants to, I mean, if you huddle with PC MPPs for any time, and I've spent, hours with them in backyard barbecues, they talk about, well, if we do this, if we offend this group, we won't get elected. And excuse me? I don't care about, your job security. We need fundamental radical surgery in this province. So I don't care if you get elected or re-elected. If you offend people, just, do what needs to be done. Act on principle.
Rod, what say you? Does the Conservative Party of Canada have to rebrand itself as Liberal-lite in order to form government?
I don't think so. I think all we need to do is look back one election cycle and see the story of Aaron O'Toole. And
I wrote it down.
Which is interesting, right? Because we all watched that. And I will say this, and this is sort of my position on that. Aaron O'Toole thought, well, we're going to do something different. We're going to come right up the middle. And we're going to, the people that are angry at Justin Trudeau, we could probably get them over. Of course, the Conservatives, they have nowhere else to go. This was his calculus, or someone's calculus there. I don't know whose it was, but he was the messenger of that. And you know what? If Aaron O'Toole would have won that election, he would have been hailed as a political genius. Mm-hmm. And he didn't win. We got O'Tooled, as I like to say. And and now, of course, he's like, here's what you never do. You never try to out Trudeau, because Trudeau's the real deal when it comes to Trudeauing. And so I don't know. I think we've tried that experiment. It didn't work. And we just kind of got to go back to the roots, stand up for what's right, show the evidence, and hope that most Canadians will somehow wake up, put their elbows down, wake up and go, yeah, this is a mess. This isn't like Canada used to be 15 years ago.
Sheila, I think Rod makes a brilliant point.
Sure.
I'd forgotten about the 2021 election. I guess that's how horrific it is. But I do remember how Justin Trudeau came out of the gate with not one bad week, because certainly not one bad week does an election campaign make, but he had two atrocious weeks. And Aaron O'Toole, by contrast, had 2 superb weeks in the early going. And then to Rod's point, what did Aaron O'Toole start to do? Well, he started to talk about, gun legislation as in a gun grab. He started to talk about carbon taxes again. And he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. So we have proof that, being liberal-lite doesn't work when, you're dealing with a conservative base. And for those liberals out there, if I was a liberal voter, Sheila, why am I drinking New Coke when I can have Coke Classic?
Yeah, this is a failed strategy over and over again. When the old PCs in Alberta decided to move towards the middle, it put zero daylight in between them and the NDP. And then all of a sudden we had an NDP government for 4 very dark years. As Doug Ford was talking there, I wrote down the name Aaron O'Toole on my little notepad on my desk because, a strategy, by the way, that might work in Ontario will not work in the rest of the country. Do you think for a second that Western conservatives are going to be like, we need someone who's a little less conservative, a little less blue of a Tory? It just won't work. And when you look at the conservative movement, and this is just the facts, the brain trust of the conservative movement is from the West. The ideas of the conservative movement are largely from the West, but also something that all political parties need, and that's the fundraising. Much of that comes out of the West. And where is Pierre Poilievre running? In one of the darkest blue ridings in the entire country, one of the most conservative places in North America, and I'm factoring Texas into that mix there. And so Doug Ford's advice is be a little less conservative when the infrastructure of the party is sort of receding back to the West. His advice is to be a little less Western. Sure, that'll work out great. That's how you have Carney's kids running the country because we'll never get rid of them.